This video is going to be a definitive guide on Hermes Agent and how to set it up better than 99% of people for your business or personal use in 30 minutes. If you're using Hermes Agent as a glorified version of ChatGPT, you're missing out on 95% of its potential, and generic setup equals generic results. That's why I wanted to go with you through every single aspect of Hermes Agent and how to optimize it so that you can get the most out of it. So in this video, we're going to cover 9 things. And first, I'm going to explain for a few minutes what these things are. And then we're going to hop in and do everything from scratch to the actual use cases, how you can use Hermes Agent. So number 1 is the actual setup process. You have the option to set it up on your main laptop or a machine or a Mac Mini server or on a VPS. I advise to do a VPS for the start because it runs 24/7. It's cheap, you can destroy it, you can back it up.
Claude Code has been getting a lot of attention lately, but it's not the only AI coding tool worth using. Open code is growing in popularity, and for good reason. It's 100% open source, it supports multiple providers over a year. Then you can simply open up your command prompt or terminal, paste in that command, and press enter. And it will only take a few seconds to install OpenCode. Beautiful! Now that we've got OpenCode installed, in order to start OpenCode, we can simply enter the command OpenCode and press enter. And that's it. Now we've got access to OpenCode. Now when you use command to install Next.js, and if we have a look at our file system, we do indeed see our Next.js project. Let's see if OpenCode can also run commands. Please start the dev server. And indeed, it's actually starting the dev server on port 3000. And cool, our Next.js project here is something you need to be careful about. You do have 2 different ways to pay for inference. You could pay for, recommend using AI from your 5.5. So we copy this command. Then back in our project, I'm just going to open up a new terminal window and let's install that skill. OpenCode is not in this list, but that's not a problem at all because it uses the standard .agents folder for retrieving skills and anything that we want to attach to it. So I'm actually not going to select anything in this list. Let's simply press enter. We'll install this at project level and let's proceed with the installation. And just to show you what this did, it created this .agents folder, which is a standard convention for the majority of coding agents out there. And within the agents folder, we've got this skills subfolder along with our front-end design skill. This contains a name for the skill, a description on when to use the skill, and just a very detailed prompt on building beautiful user interfaces. Since we are using Next.js, I do want to install one more skill, and that's the Next.js skill from Vercel Labs. Let's copy this command, and I'll just run that in the terminal as well, just like how we did it with the front-end design skill. We don't have to select any of these tools, we'll install it at project level, and that's it. So now in the skills folder, we've got our front-end design skill and the Next.js skill that actually contains a lot of reference documentation for using Next.js. Now, our app will have AI functionality baked into it, so I'm actually going to be proactive and install the AI SDK from Vercel. So again, just search for AI SDK, copy this command, and let's install this skill as well. So we can just verify that the agent has access to all of those skills by running the skills command. And here we can see our front-end design skill, the AI SDK, Next best practices, and Next.js. So some of these skills might actually be stored in my user folder, but for you, you should definitely have those 3 skills available. Just a side note, if you don't see any skills, what you need to do is simply exit out of OpenCode by running /exit, then just reopen OpenCode, and now you should see all of those skills. So I'll just switch my model back to GPT 5.5 high, and what I'm also going to do is just go to source control and create a commit. Added skills. Nice. And by the way, if you click on this OpenCode logo, you get this effect. Another important component to understand is memory files. So root of our project, what we can do is create a new file called agents.md. Now, I already have that file available, but if you don't have it, you can create it yourself. And that file looks something like this. I'm actually going to delete everything that's in that file at the moment. And this is where we can tell our agent all about our project and provide very strict instructions. This actually forms part of the system prompt for this coding agent. So if there are any specific rules that you want the agent to follow, this is where you need to add those. Now, if you want OpenCode to set up that file itself, what you can do is run the command /init. And what OpenCode will do is scan your code base and then automatically create and set up this agents.md file. And once this is done, we now have our agents.md file with some instructions just kind of detailing the layout and tech stack in this project. Now, what I actually recommend you do is just clear out this file and add as little information as possible. Only provide any strict instructions that the agent needs to follow. And let me show you how powerful this really is. Let's do something very simple like respond with emojis only. Now there's a really big reason for the actual implementation. So in planning mode, I'm actually going to pass this prompt. Again, you can just get this from the repo itself, but just to go over it, we're building a lightweight AI project planner app for this tutorial. The app should let a user enter a rough app idea, then generate an editable project brief with the app summary, the target users, core features, a recommended tech stack, the pages and routes, a possible data model, the build phases, risk and edge cases, and a final copyable starter prompt for a coding agent. And then we'll keep the scope small, so no user authentication, no database, no payments. It's just a simple Next.js application.
OpenAI's Codex isn't just for coding. It's also really good at knowledge work. Things like creating files on your computer, generating personalized infographics, automating tasks like emails, and building custom dashboards tailored for your needs. At first glance, though, Codex can look very intimidating. But as a non-coder myself, I'm going to explain how to use it in a way that anyone can understand. In fact, it will only take you about 15 minutes to really master everything you need to get started. This is Codex. It's really just an app for your computer. Now, this may look very similar to ChatGPT, and indeed, it can do a lot of the same things ChatGPT can do. But the way Codex works is fundamentally different. With ChatGPT, everything you create lives in the cloud. Codex, on the other hand, will interact and create files directly on your computer. If you've ever used Claude Cowork, this idea will feel very similar. In fact, many people are calling Codex the Claude Cowork killer. To get started, you want to download the Codex app. You can find this at chatgpt.com/codex. Here is a button to download it, so I'll click on that. Then I'll open the download, drag Codex into my applications folder, and I'll open Spotlight and search for Codex and open it up. The first thing we'll ask you to do is to sign in with your ChatGPT account. So the good news here is that if you have a ChatGPT subscription, Codex is included as part of that at no additional cost. So I'll click here where it says continue with ChatGPT. That will then open up my browser where I'll sign into my ChatGPT account, and that will then authorize Codex. Great. So once you're signed in, Codex will ask you some things to apply, maybe used. Everything starts right here in this chat box. And to stay as organized as possible,
So this week in AI,
you want to work inside of folders on your computer, or as Codex calls them, projects. Projects are really just folders that exist on your computer. So right here on this dropdown, you can select a folder that will then be turned into a Codex project. So I'll click on Add New Project. That will then bring up your Finder, and you can select the folder you want to work inside of. Or if you want to set up a brand new folder for this project, just click on New Folder. But here I have a folder that contains a bunch of receipts from a trip I recently took. So I'm going to select that folder and click on Open. Right here, you can see that folder is now selected. It says Receipts. And over here on the left, under Projects, we see Receipts. So this project is now matched up with that folder. So let's ask it to do something for us. I'll tell it to create an Excel file that categorizes all of these receipts with a breakdown of each expense and the total cost for the trip. Right here, we can select the model that we want to use. So clicking on the dropdown, right here, you can see the model. I'm going to leave it on GPT 5.5, which is the Excel to see it. It's right file that contains what is essentially my brand kit so that we can follow that in the future to make sure that anything we create stays on brand. Now, because this is completely different from the last use case, we'll create a new project for this. I'll click on the chat. You can multitask, like maybe go browse something on the web, and this will alert you when something needs your attention. So right here, you can see that it is working on creating your brand kit, but there's a little bit of an alert here telling you you need to do something. So I'll click on this. That will then bring me over to that chat. And you can see right here, it's asking me for permission to allow network access. So I'll click on submit. Now you can see it working. So once again, I can return back to a fresh chat, do anything else I want, or maybe browse the web. And this will alert me if this task that's running needs my attention again. So now that task is done. And I know that even though I'm not inside the Codex app, because my pet has this green circle here. That lets me know that a task is complete. I can open it up, click on it, and come right over to the task. So let's open this up and see what it looks like. Here is my brand kit. And once again, this is inside that folder we just created. Now, using this, I want to show you something else you can do with Codex, which are skills. Skills are a set of this side panel, and I'll just tell it to create a skill called on brand. Every time, let's test it out. I'll start connected up with my Gmail account. To do that, all I have to do is a Gmail plugin, and you can see all the other plugins that are available here. And in my experience, the more plugins that you add, the more helpful tools like Codex are going to be at helping you. So if you use Canva a lot, add Canva if you want to do that. Now let's.
So Codex is an absolutely incredible super app. I've been using it a lot more lately, and I'm not saying that I'm ditching Claude Code. I still use them both regularly because they're both good at different things. So today's video, I'm going to break down every single important thing that you need to know about Codex to be able to, open up the app for the first time and then actually have finished automations and websites and whatever you want to do in Codex done by the end of this video. So whether you've never opened up a tool like this before or do everything, it's one of those things where Codex subscription is you can plug it into OpenClaw or Hermes agent, which is really, really nice because obviously it's so much more expensive to pay per token rather than just being on some sort of subscription. And then you're just going to go ahead and go to Codex and then just download the app for your operating system. Paste that in. Now I'm inside of. This is just to show you guys how good it's going to be at finding different files locally and being a more agentic tool. And we've got a really cool vision. So check it out in the description. Okay, so now that you understand that context, the first hurdle for us to overcome is how do you actually connect to my YouTube in order to be able to pull in my data? I want you to be able to specifically at this point, be able to pull in a bunch of comments so that you can analyze them. So help me figure out how we do that and then explain it to me step by step. And that's really the mindset shift with tools like Codex or Claude Code, is if you don't know if something's possible, instead of defaulting to, oh, I need to go to YouTube, or oh, I want to book in a consulting call with an expert, just ask Codex or Claude Code. Ask it to do research and explain things to you. And that's basically how I learned everything that I know. So while this is running, I wanted to explain something real quick, which is called plugins. Plugins, MCP servers, skills, connectors, whatever you want to call them. We kind of have this interface inside of Codex to do stuff like this. And what you'll notice is there's a bunch of different plugins here. We've got Hugging Face, we've got Vercel, we've got GitHub, we've got Game Studio. We've got a bunch down here for design, Remotion, Figma, Hyperframes, Canva. We've got stuff for lifestyle, productivity, and this lets us basically connect to a lot of the tools that we already know and love. Google Drive, Slack, SharePoint, Teams, whatever you may need, a lot of that stuff is available here. And if you can't find it, you can go ahead and search. So like Slack, we have it right there. But look, if I search YouTube, there is no default plugin right here. And that's why I had to ask Codex, okay, so there's no plugin. How do I actually access YouTube data? And so it comes back here and it asks us some questions. It says, for the first comment analysis milestone, which connection path should we plan around? API key, OAuth, or both? I'm just gonna go with its recommendation because let's say I don't know what I need to do, and I'm gonna click on API key. What should the first comment poll focus on? I'm just gonna say recent videos. And now if it has any other questions, it'll go ahead and ask us those first. Now, one thing you'll notice is because it already was searching through my other folders and projects, it did find an API key in a different project, but I'm still gonna show you guys how you would get this set up because it comes back here with a plan, which we can go ahead and read. So what it wants to use is, it found an API key, so not full OAuth, and then it needs to actually convert everything. So what I'm just gonna say is, instead of implementing, I'm gonna say, I'm glad that you found that API key, but let's set up a fresh one because in my Google Cloud, I want to have a separate API key for Codex and a separate one for Claude Code. So let's just go ahead and assume that we're going to create a complete new one from scratch. And now I'm able to shoot off those changes. Codex is going to review the plan and then edit it. And then once we're aligned on the plan, we'll go ahead and start executing. So now it's come back and it has, okay, we're going to do a brand new Google Cloud API key. If you wanted to read through all of this step by step, you could, but I'm just going to go ahead and say submit, implement the plan. So there's some stuff that we're going to have to do here. We're going to have to go into Google Cloud Console and we're going to have to create this new project, enable this API, and then grab the API key and then get it configured inside of Codex. So if this part of the tutorial isn't very interesting to you, you don't want to watch me get it set up, maybe you want to do some stuff first with the native plugins, which is much easier. Typically these plugins, you just basically sign in the same way where you would open up Slack and sign in, or the same way you would open up Gmail and sign in. And that's a lot easier. Okay, so I have to go to Google Cloud and get everything set up in a project. If I didn't know exactly how to do this, it would tell me step by step as you guys saw in the plan. But what it's gonna do is it created another file for us. So it created this one called .env.local. So what I'm gonna do is head over to my Google Cloud Console. I'm signed in with my YouTube account and I'm gonna go ahead and create a new project. So I'm gonna call this one Codex Demo. I'm just gonna go ahead and create this project. And once that's spun up, it's pretty simple. We just have to create a connection to YouTube Data API, and then we're going to create an API key. So I'm gonna select this project. The first thing I'm gonna do is search up here at the top for YouTube Data, and we're gonna grab the YouTube Data API v3, and then I'm gonna go ahead and click Enable. And once that has been enabled, it should pull up a new screen that looks like this. And then I'm gonna go down here to Credentials, and I'm going to just create a new API key. So create API key. This is just gonna be called Codex YouTube Demo. And then right here for the restrictions, I'm just gonna once again type in YouTube. We're gonna check YouTube Data API v3, and then we're gonna go ahead and create that API key. And it gives me this value that I'm gonna go ahead and copy. So I'm gonna copy that, and then I'm going to pull in that file that it created, the .env.local. And I'm just gonna open this file real quick with my notepad. And here is where I'm going to put my YouTube API key. I'm just gonna paste that in right there, hit save, and then I can close out of that because what we need to get next is we need to get our YouTube channel ID. I'm not actually gonna do the uploads playlist. I don't think it needs that, but I am going to go find the YouTube channel ID. Oh, but this is actually cool. My YouTube channel ID is already in there and the playlist ID is already in there because it was able to just pull it from a different project. So obviously if you didn't have that already set up, it wouldn't do that, but it would explain to you exactly how to do that if you needed to. So now that we have that API key put in, let's just see if it works. Okay, so I've given you the API key in that local.env. Can you go ahead and test it to see if that connection works? And if not, then we'll have to make some changes. Okay, now while this is running, what you guys might notice when you hop into Codex is that it might pause a lot to actually ask you questions and like approve things. And that's what happens when you're on default permissions. So if you want to be able to change that, you're going to go up here to your settings. And then in general, you can see right here, auto review or full access. And this by default will be turned off. So if I turn this on, then when we're back in our chat, we now have the ability, see right here, this is exact example, allow network access. And I want to say, yeah, allow it. Or if I switch this to full access, now it's just going to do everything without asking for permission. So obviously it comes up as orange here because there's some times where you might not want full autonomous access. And I think it's best practice when you're first getting started and you're first building some automations to maybe just leave it on default. But once you start getting a hang of your skills and you start getting a hang of the flow, then moving to full access is going to save you a lot of time so that you can actually not have to babysit it. But I had to call that out because, we've seen horror stories of agents deleting databases or sending out mass emails and stuff like that. So you just want to be safe with it. I personally have never had any sort of problem like that. That usually comes from context raw. or very vague instructions, or just not being super smart with your planning. So you can see what's happening.
And you can harden it so it's relatively safe as well. And I made a whole video how to go through that on a Hetzner VPS. I'll link to that below and up here somewhere. And the second thing I wanted to discuss is models. They're actually primary, auxiliary, and fallback models. We're going to go through that when we set it all up. The messaging platforms, you have many options. You can go Discord, Slack, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, whatever you want. Memory, every memory type, you have many options Right now, we are going to go through every and the pros and cons. It's not complicated. The skills, the actual highlight of Hermes Agent. The file structure is very important because if you're going to manage clients, if you're going to manage multiple projects, this is very important to understand and to nail so you don't end up with some sort of mess. Agent profiles, how you can have different profiles with isolation, with different memory, with different credentials, with different sole MD file. And one of the last things is the workflow, how you can use workflows and complex orchestration between agents and the actual use cases, whether it's running a CRM or your email or daily reports, research, trading, investment advice, whatever you can imagine. Now I'm going to go back to step 1 and show you the exact process, how to set it up, and then we'll go through the whole 9 steps and you can see them in action. So stick with me in this video, like, comment, subscribe. It means a lot to me. So let's dig in. The first thing you have to decide is where you're going to host your Hermes agent. You have the option between something like Hetzner, and many people you see online will promote Hostinger. I agree, it is much easier if you're a non-technical person, and you have the option of choosing this one, KVM1, KVM2. KVM1 is more than enough for Hermes agent, but the thing is you're paying for 2 years here, and that's kind of turn off for me, honestly. And if you go here, you will see the actual price if you're paying for 1 month, if you want to test it out first, is much more. So it'll renew at $20. On Hetzner, it would cost you less than $10 a month to actually get quite a task for the password, and you paste the password, and now we are in. You any of those limits, you can just change it, but here I like to say all, which is great. Compression threshold, that's when your conversation will compress, and as maybe you don't know, but if you go until 100%, it compacts the conversation, and between 50 and 100 it spends so much more tokens. So compressing at 50% or 70% is much more token efficient, and Hermes does that very well here. I would say just recommended here, messaging platform. I'm going to go through how to set up Telegram, and Discord is just as easily done. You just ask your agent. Once you connect Telegram, you can just ask your agent to help you set up Discord. So it's as easy as that. So let's select Telegram here, and I'll pull up Telegram here, and what you basically need to do is to go to Botfather, just find
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Now, previously we set up OpenClaw locally on our Mac, and it requires having like a beefy Mac to run it locally. Well, at least the AI running locally. So today we're checking out Hostinger, which is like a big online platform. They allow WordPress, WooCommerce, web hosting, cloud hosting, agency hosting, VPS hosting, website builders, pretty much everything you need as a business they provide. And what we're looking at here was that one-click OpenClaw. So I'm going to click on that click, and it says deploy OpenClaw in seconds. You get 2 AI credits bonus. I got the KVM2 plan to check out. We're going to be checking it out together, see how it's good. You get 100 gigabytes. Now this is gigabytes, GB, not GIB, GB, 1000 megabytes, 100 times over, 8 terabytes bandwidth, 2 CPU cores. And regarding pricing, I do have a coupon code XCreate10. Gives you 10% off. You see, normally is $19.99, and it says it runs it on a VPS, so a virtual private server. Don't run it locally on a machine because it could be into 7, 8, 9, 10. The good thing about the setup is it says you're free over there, and set this guy up and see how it is. I'm gonna go for Malaysia. That's my setup right now. And I'm going to go Docker application, boom, open Claw, select. So you can set it up by default with WhatsApp, Telegram built in. You just give your tokens over there. And in seconds, it will be deployed. That's setting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The good thing about the setup is it says you're free to leave the page and they'll send you an email once it is ready. So it is up and running. OpenClaw, TFN, gateway token, manage. So they do have this terminal command. If anyone's used Amazon AWS kind of situation, it's the same sort of information. So we are actually logged into our system. Let's see what's going on. It's an empty folder right there, hosted on Ubuntu, and I'm only using 9.6% of the storage. So all you do once you get to this interface, it might be a bit daunting if you're using this for the first time like me, but all you do is pretty much you grab your gateway token and you click on that open button, boom, you paste your gateway token in there and you log in. And now you got your Clue instance in the cloud and it's chosen dark theme because it's trying to show that it's Knight Rider-esque. It's, the fast situation. So I'm going to just see what is going on. I'm going to say, hello, are you there? Something is happening right now. It is connected. I just came online. So this instance does come with API creds. I'm going to go into the config over here to see if I can find out what is exactly it pointing to. And I can see that the models we're using right now, someone's called Nexus, all-in-one AI platform for your best work. This lady, she's doing the best work. So that's what it's connecting to. So I'm going to go into chat over here and say, what is, and it's model alias for your OpenClaw setup. Nexus is the model router provider and it's different LLMs. GPT 5.2 is the GPT-5 family. So it's OpenAI. And that is the situation. So I'm going to ask you to do a task that I actually needed to get done for my previous video. I'm going to say, can you download me the icons? And this is a hard one. So I'm going to know this one. Ring 2.51T. Let's see. So hopefully we're going to find out if this AI is defaultly having all the integrations, for example, web downloads, all the skills. So it says, what style do you want? I say at least 512px. So it's telling me that it can't download and search on the internet because it's currently blocked. So I'm going to go to Clued. So I'm going to go to Claw Hub. And I think there is a skill. You should pretty much install this one. Well, at your own risk. Of course, it's not my risk. It's the host's risk. So I'm going to search because the default one comes with this brace search, but it's something called multi-search engine. No API keys required. So I'm going to go into the skills section right now. And I'm going to just see the skills that I have. And I want to make sure that Claw Hub over here is enabled. Use Claw Hub CLI to search. So I just pretty much asked it to install multi-search engine with the Claw Hub npx command. I just pasted it in there. It executed it and it got it up and running. It's installed. So I'm going to click new session. I'm ready. Can you access the multi-search engine? And it says, yes, I can access it. So now I'm going to ask it again. And hopefully this time it's going to be able to do the searching and downloading everything for me. So some important skills we just did there. We learned this on the fly. So I've been playing with this OpenClaw, trying to get it to do things. Can you use multi-search engine to search for something cool? Let's see. It's gonna find this agent in the hosting cloud. So here are a few cool things: a brand new open source drop, boom, weird little projects. I'll say anything. Just find me something cool. I don't want to have this questionnaire. I'm not a human questionnaire, AI. You just do what I say, or say what I do. And oh, okay, it's found something. It found interactive video projection. This is how it's done, kind of demonstration. So I'll let that load away and say, can you find me something from this week? And look at this, gorgeous. Oh. Oh, hello, it's a raindrop. So we're back over here. For this week, the last 7 days, we found Open Auto NLU. And this is an article just came out on the 2nd of March. And it is all about, so to summarize it, see, why do I need to read? I mean, technically, I need to read what it writes, but why do I need to read this whole paper? Look, yeah, it's complicated. Who has time for this? Did the reading for me, so it can do differently. Data aware training regime selection. Is it any good? Before they even hit the mainstream, there's real substance with a couple of caveats. And here's caveats, because when I was young, guys,
after I tested Qwen 3.6 on tasks of varying complexity, I realized that this model is fully ready to take the role of the main local model I use. However, since that role is currently held by Gemma 4, the logical next step for me is to compare them and choose a winner. It is important to note that I will not be doing abstract benchmarking or
Hey everyone, welcome back, and let's write some more neat code today. So today let's solve a very popular problem and probably one of my favorite problems of all time. It's jump games. So this is a very popular dynamic programming problem, but it can also be solved in a greedy way. I'm going to show you both solutions and then we're going to code up the greedy solution, and it's very little code. So that's the good thing, but it's a pretty clever problem. So let's dive into it. So we're given an array of non-negative numbers, so all of them are going to be 0 or positive, and we're initially positioned at the first index of the array. So for example, in this input array, we're positioned at the first index, or the 0th index, right? The first position. So this is where we're going to start. We're going to start in this position. And so for every value in the array, for every element, the number itself, for example, number 2 in the first position, represents the max jump length that we can perform at every single position. Basically, what that means is from this first position, we can only do a max jump of 2, meaning our max jump could only get us to this position, right? And another example, from here, since this is a 1 value, the max jump we can do is a 1 jump, meaning we can only jump to the next position, right? Obviously this is a 3. The max jump we can do is a 3, meaning we can reach the end position, the 4, from here, right? Because we can do a jump of length 3. Given all of that, given that we're positioned here and that every value represents the jump size, we are only asked, can we reach the last index? So starting from here, given these jump values, are we able to reach the destination, which is the last value in the array? So in this first example, the answer is yes. So we return true because yes, we can reach this position. How can we do it? Well, we start here, so we can do a jump of length 2, or we can do a jump of length 1, right? We don't have to do the max jump length. We can choose to do 1 jump. So then let's say we're at the second position now, right? So now we're at 3. We can either do a jump of length 1, a jump of length 2, or a jump of length 3. And we're going to do the 3, right? Because now we're here, meaning we're at the last position, right? We're at the last position. Therefore, we did reach the end. Therefore, we can reach the end. So we return true. Okay, so let's look at a different example. Let's look at this example. Can we reach the last position or not, right? That's the question we are trying to answer. Let's brute force this. How can you brute force this problem? Well, let's look at every possible path we could take. So remember, we start over here. What's every single path we could take that could potentially get us to the end? If we find even a single path that can get us to our destination, then we return true. So for each of these values, I'm going to give them an index. So we know that 3 is at index 0. This is index 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these are the indices. So I'm going to start at position 0, right? We're starting at position 0 and see the value we have. The value we have is 3. That means we can make a jump of length 1, a jump of length 2, or a jump of length 3. If we make a jump of length 1, you can see we get to a 2, right? So the next position, if we took a jump of length 1, right? So from here we jump 1, then we're going to get to index 1, right? So that's what I'm going to put here. We're at index 1. If we take a jump of 2, we're obviously going to get to index 2. If we take a jump of length 3, we're obviously going to get to index 3. So these are the indices, right? So that's what each of these is representing. Each of these values is representing the index. The value on the edge here, 3, 2, 1, these are representing the jumps that we're having to take, right? We're going through all this work because we're showing the brute force solution. So from here, we're at index 1, right? We're at index 1, we have a value 2. That means we can do 2 jumps, right? A jump of 1, which would get us to index 2. So 1 decision is a jump of length 1, which gets us to index 2, or we can take a jump of length 2, right? Because this is a 2, so then we get to index 3, value 0. So we can take a jump of length 2 and then get to index 3. So now I'm just going to quickly start filling this tree in, and you can see that we're going to be doing a lot of repeated work, and that's what we're going to do. So this brute force solution, I think it's roughly n to the power of n, right? Where n is actually the length of our input array, right? N is the length of our input array. So this is roughly the big O time complexity of the brute force solution. I'm going to show you how to cache this, and when you cache it, you can actually make this a big O of n squared solution, but we need a little extra memory for that. But basically, we're going to optimize this brute force solution. After that, I'm going to show you the greedy solution, which is actually big O of n time complexity, and you can skip to that if you'd rather just do that. So from index 2, we see we have a value 1, right? That means we can only make one jump, and that jump is length 1. And when we do that, we jump from here to here, we get to index 3. Funny enough, that's where this path is also. So we're at index 3. That value is a 0 though. So what does 0 tell us? 0 tells us we can't make any jumps, right? We're making jumps of length 0, which means we're not really jumping anywhere. So basically a 3 is a dead end for us. So basically this is a dead end, right? This 3 can't lead us anywhere. And you know, now that we actually go through the rest of our tree, right, brute force, we're going to go to this 3 and we're going to find the exact same thing is true. It can't jump anywhere. So this 3 is a dead end. This 3 is also a dead end. Because when we get to index 3 in our array, we cannot jump anywhere. It has a 0 value. Zeros are always going to be dead ends for us. And we actually only have one valid path left, and that's going to be from index 2. So if we were doing the brute force solution, right, which is what we reach the end, we get stuck at 3. So what we can do in our memory is DP, let's say we have an array called DP, right? That's going to be our cache. DP of index 2 is going to be false, right? That tells us we've already visited that. We've already gone down that decision before, and it's false because we could not reach the end. So now when we're over here, in this position, index 2, we don't have to do anything, right? We don't have to continue that decision of making a jump of 1 and then getting to 3. We can actually immediately stop this, say, okay, no, we know that from here we cannot reach the end. And you know what you might have noticed by now is none of these paths can reach the end, right? So if we were doing the DP solution or a cache solution, we'd say, okay, DP of 3 is also false. Of 1 is false, right? Because take a look at this 1. When you take 1, or rather this 1, right? This tells us we're at index 1. Both of the paths lead to 2 and 3, and those are also false. So DP of 1 is also going to be false. And when you look at the root of this, the root tells us when we started at the first position, right? That turned out to lead to all 4 X's, right? We could not reach the end. Therefore, even when we start from the first position in this input array, we can't reach the last position. So DP of 0 is going to be false. We are going to return false, right? That's basically a little bit of the brute force solution, as well as using a cache to speed up the solution. If you do use this extra memory, this cache, you can get this solution to be O of n squared time complexity, but there's actually an even better solution. We can be greedy and we can get a linear time solution, a big O n solution. Let me show you how to quickly do that. And then the code is actually pretty short. Let's take a look. Okay, so now let's get into the actual greedy solution. So this is greedy and it's going to be linear time complexity. This problem has a pretty simple solution. We don't actually need dynamic programming. Let's look at we know that this is the starting position, right? The left or the first index is the starting position. Our goal is to get to the end position, right? But let's actually look at this in reverse order. Let's start at the end position and then see if we can work our way to the beginning in a sense, right? So in actuality, the first index is the starting position. This is the goalpost, right? This is the position that we're trying to reach. But we can see, let's work our way backwards. Let's take a look at this position. It's right next to the goal, right? This is our goal, and we're just pretend like this is a goal. So this is our goal, and this is right next to the goal. The 1 means that we can make a jump of length 1. So really, we go here, we make the jump, and now we're at the goal. What does that tell us? Doesn't that tell us that we don't actually need to reach this position anymore, right? If I'm starting over here, right? Let's say we're starting over here. This guy over here can literally reach the end position, right? We know for a fact this guy can reach the end position which we're trying to reach. Doesn't that mean that we can take our goalpost and then shift it over here, right? Because we're not trying to get here anymore. Now our new goal is to get to this position because this can reach the end position, right? So from here, we're now trying to get to this position. We move the goalpost a little bit closer to us. So now we're going to put that goalpost over here. So now let's look at the next position in reverse order. So this is also a 1. That's good for us because we can make a jump of length 1 over here, right? Now, notice this guy can't reach the end position, right? Which is bad, but it can reach this position, which is where our goalpost is, which is all that really matters, right? As long as we can reach the goalpost, we can keep shifting it. So now let's shift the goalpost one more time. We can move it just a little bit closer to our initial position. Now we work our way backwards again. We're at a 3. That tells us we can make a jump of length 3 or less. So it could jump 1, 2, 3 all the way over here, right? That 3 could jump all the way to the end, which is awesome for us, but that's actually unnecessary because we see the goalpost is even closer than we expected. Now it's over here to us. Now let me need is a goalpost, right? So initially we are going to have that goalpost or goal or whatever you want to call it at the end. So it's going to be the end, right? We're trying to reach the last index in our input array. And remember, we're going to be working our way backwards in the input array. So in Python, this is how you do it. You just take the length of the input and you can do a range loop with it. So basically what we're doing with this one line is we're starting at the last index and working our way to the beginning up until we reach the initial index, the first index. So now I want to know if we're at position I, right? I plus nums of I, right? Nums of I is going to be the jump length, right? I want to know, can this jump starting at position I, taking that maximum jump, is it greater than or equal to the goal? Because if it is, that means we can reach the goal. What do we do when we can reach the goal? We shift that goalpost even closer to us. So if we're able to reach the goal from here, we can update the goal to be I. Right? I is the position that we're jumping from right now. So that's where we're going to shift the goalpost to. Awesome, right? That's literally all you have to do. Now, when we reach the end, right, either two things will be true. Either goal will now be 0, right? Meaning that from position 0, we're able to reach the goal. Or goal will be greater than 0, which means we were not able to reach the end of the input list. So we can make a condition to return that. So return true, goal is equal to 0, else return false. So this is how you solve jump game in linear time with the greedy solution. No extra memory is required, and this is how you do it in Python. In Java or C, it might just be 1 or 2 lines of extra code, but